All right, Vance on immigration here. See what he has to say. European immigration.
Questions like who gets to be a part of our shared society? And of all the pressing challenges that the nations represented here face, I believe there is nothing more urgent than mass migration. Today,
Uh-oh.
He went there. He's
Uh-oh.
going there. Radioactive topic. Here we go.
He went there. Yep. Oh, geez.
today, almost 1 in 5 people living in this country moved here from abroad. That is, of course, an all-time high. It's a similar number, by the way, in the United States, also an all-time high. The number of immigrants who entered the EU from non-EU countries doubled between 2021 and 2022 alone.
What the fuck? Holy shit.
And of course, it's gotten much higher since. And we know the situation, it didn't materialize in a vacuum. It's the result of a series of conscious decisions made by politicians all over the continent and others across the world over the span of a decade.
Is it just Ukraine? Oh, if it's just Ukraine, then that would make sense. Yeah.
We saw the horrors wrought by these decisions yesterday in this very city. And of course, I can't bring it up again without thinking about the terrible victims who had a beautiful winter day in Munich ruined. Our thoughts and prayers are with them and will remain with them. But why did this happen in the first place? It's a terrible story, but it's one we've heard way too many times in Europe and unfortunately too many times in the United States as well. An asylum seeker, often a young man in his mid-20s, already known to police, rams a car into a crowd and shatters a community.
Well, they told him to leave too, right? Like he had deportation orders or his asylum had been denied. And they just said, all right, well, there it is.
So yeah, there was a fresh tragic terrorist attack apparently in Munich. I live in Germany, so I mean, in general, would be super sad to hear this, but it's yeah, crazy that that happened nearby, and yeah, heart goes out to everybody, and yeah, I do think it's important to be asking why these things are happening and why, why many people, many of the masses are speaking up about huge numbers of unvetted immigrants from often wildly different cultures pouring into a region like Europe and questioning the potentially destabilizing effects that that can have.
Well, figure it out. His asylum had been, his asylum had been denied, but he had been allowed to stay?
How many times must we suffer these appalling setbacks before we change course and take our shared civilization in a new direction? No vote.
His tone sounds kind of like dad just got home and he's mad. He's grabbing the belt or something. Like, dang, he's really coming in hot here. He's treating these European leaders like a whipping post right now a little bit, coming in with the intense speech. I mean, it takes balls. It does take balls to go in and just speak words that you know are going to be perceived as confronting, hostile, triggering, uh, difficult to hear. If nothing else, setting aside the content of what he's saying, it's interesting just to look at this from the perspective of like single pointed masculine will and kind of man on a mission energy, you know, to see an archetypal character like the Vice President of the United States enter into an arena of European leaders and start just calling them out and holding up a mirror. That's wild. Yeah, whether you agree with the contents of the mirror or not, it's just interesting it's archetypally activating to see that.
Voter on this continent went to the ballot box to open the floodgates to millions of unvetted immigrants. But you know what they did vote for? In England, they voted for Brexit, and agree or disagree, they voted for it. And more all over Europe, they're voting for political leaders who promise to put an end to out-of-control migration. Now, I happen to agree with a lot of these concerns, but you don't have to agree with me. I just think that people care about their homes, they care about their dreams, they care about their safety and their capacity to provide for themselves and their children. And they're smart. I think this is one of the most important things I've learned in my brief time in politics. Contrary to what you might hear a couple mountains over in Davos, the citizens of all of our nations don't generally think of themselves as educated animals or as interchangeable cogs of a global economy.
No fucking way. Bro. He watched Sam's video. That's the exact vocabulary Sam Hyde used. Oh my God. Yeah, he did? Yeah. Jesus.
And it's hardly surprising that they don't want to be shuffled about or relentlessly ignored by their leaders. And it is the business of democracy to adjudicate these big questions at the ballot box. I believe that dismissing people, dismissing their concerns, or worse yet, shutting down media, shutting down elections, or shutting people out of the political process protects nothing. In fact, it is the most surefire way to destroy democracy. And speaking up and expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy, what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even...
It's not even invalid. It's illegal. You can't even have these opinions. You can't express them.
...being considered. Democracy rests on the sacred principle that the voice of the people matters.
Oh, boy.
There's no room for firewalls. You either uphold the principle or you don't. Europeans, the people, have a voice. European leaders have a choice. And my strong belief is that we do not need to be afraid of the future. You can embrace what your people tell you, even when it's surprising, even when you don't agree. And if you do so, you can face the future with certainty and with confidence, knowing that the nation stands behind each of you. And that, to me, is the great magic of democracy. It's not in these stone buildings or beautiful hotels. It's not even in the great institutions that we have built together as a shared society. To believe in democracy is to understand that each of our citizens has wisdom and has a voice. And if we refuse to listen to that voice, even our most successful fights will secure very little. As Pope John Paul II,
yeah, I think that's true. I mean, like, and if people can't even vote, they don't even let certain parties into the elections or into these like conventions or conferences. Like, that's nuts, man. Jesus.
My view, one of the most extraordinary champions of democracy on this continent or any other once said, "Do not be afraid." We shouldn't be afraid of our people, even when they express views that disagree with their leadership. Thank you all. Good luck to all of you. God bless you.
Man. Holy shit. That is wild. Well, well-spoken bunch of bullshit? I don't think it's bullshit. I mean, what part of it is bullshit? I feel like it's pretty fucking accurate.
Yeah, dang. I mean, that's wild that he went there. Um, I think it's as I've said, a valid concern to consider that when you allow massive numbers of unvetted people, often from wildly different cultures, to pour into your nation, that it's valid for people to get concerned about destabilization and violence, especially when oftentimes people are coming from cultures that are holding and harboring a lot of animosity toward your culture. That's something that I think people really ought to consider. And at the same time, it's a tricky issue. Like, I'm an immigrant living in Germany. I think legal immigration is great. In many cases, or most cases. We're all immigrants. If you go back far enough, there's many upsides of immigration, but it's not a black or white issue. So it's valid for people to have different feelings about it. I think I think it is an issue we need to be able to have more open conversations about, and I don't think it's helpful when feelings of political correctness create an atmosphere where we can't speak about these types of issues, which I think has happened with a lot of Europe, a lot of the United States. And so, in a way, I'm glad just to see this conversation being brought forth. And at the same time, an interesting critique you can offer against this type of thing is like, um, okay, so Trump and Vance, they're making a big deal about immigration in the United States and Europe. They're really drawing attention to that and creating, you know, the counter argument is that they're creating a bogeyman out of illegal immigrants, kind of demonizing illegal immigrants and saying, yeah, yeah, blame illegal immigrants for all your troubles. And they aren't saying much to address the enormous growing wealth gap, the fact that um, the top three wealthiest Americans now own more wealth than the bottom 50% of Americans. I heard that the other day. Utterly appalling statistic. We clearly have a societal design that is leading to very uh, strange places with the rising enormous wealth inequality, the rise of AI, the cost of living crisis, the inflation. These guys are not talking so much about that and about solutions to that. And so, in a way, it can seem like a uh, bit of a red herring or a distraction, even to talk about many things other than that. I wouldn't fully agree with that argument. I think talking about immigration seems valid and important, but yeah, if you use it as a distraction from talking about how we're going to make life actually livable for ordinary everyday people who can no longer afford to have families, can no longer afford to have houses, who, are in debt up to their eyeballs, then, you know, that's problematic for me. And if we look at the conditions that have given rise to a lot of, you know, poverty globally or varying conditions globally where many people are wanting to immigrate to wealthier areas, the areas that are more wealthy are wealthy often due to historical injustices, um, colonialism, imperialism. There is there are important truths in that type of school of thought. You can't just completely cast out all considerations of social justice. So it's important to look at that type of thing and consider that and consider those macro historical conditions that have given rise to why we're seeing mass immigration or a desire for mass immigration. And you got to look at the wealth inequality. I mean, and just the cost of living crisis. It's hitting people hard out there. Like, it's people are gonna start asking tough questions if Trump is not addressing that, because You know, he might be doing 1,000 things. I mean, he's hit the ground running. He's doing so many things and can't even keep up with everything he's doing. And, you know, it's an incredible show of will and being on a mission. But if he's doing all these things and he's not addressing the cost of living crisis for average people in the United States and in a lot of the West and in a lot of the world and the growing wealth gap, then and how to address that, then there's something missing there, I would say. So, yeah, anywho, very interesting to see Vance holding up this mirror for European leaders. Ballsy move. And yeah, we'll see how things unfold. It's crazy to be living through these events, man. Crazy, crazy. So, yeah, anywho, thanks for watching, y'all. Peace out. Take it easy. Much love. Be well. Peace.